Eliza's life had settled into a comfortable but predictable rhythm. For 40 years, she'd been a primary school teacher, dedicating her days to the noisy, delightful chaos of Year 3 students. Now, at 60, retirement felt less like a reward and more like an echo. Her small terrace in Paddington, Sydney, was silent. Her two best friends were perpetually busy with grandchildren, and the quiet evenings were often spent with a cup of herbal tea and the gentle blue light of her laptop screen. Loneliness, she realized, was a subtle ache, easily masked during the day, but sharpest after sundown. It was this ache that led her to the dating site. She wasn't looking for fireworks, just companionship. Then she saw William. His profile photo, a high-resolution, slightly grainy shot taken against a dramatic grey-blue coastline, showed a man with kind, crinkled eyes and a strong jaw, his silver hair neatly cropped. He was 55, a structural engineer, a widower who loved sailing, classical music, and most importantly, spoke eloquently about missing the simple joy of sharing a meal with someone special. His backstory was solid: a decade spent working on global infrastructure projects, which explained his current location near the North Sea. He even mentioned his two grown children, both living in the UK, making him seem both connected and available. William was immaculate, precisely tailored to the hopes of a gentle, intelligent woman like Eliza. Thousands of miles away, in a dimly lit, stifling internet cafe in Accra, Ghana, a 28-year-old man named Kofi adjusted his headset. The cafe buzzed with the clicking of keyboards and the low murmur of dozens of similar conversations. Kofi was highly skilled, one of the best in his small, organized ring. He didn't see himself as a criminal. He saw himself as a performer, earning a better living than any job available in the formal economy. William was his masterwork, a persona built from stolen LinkedIn photos, carefully researched geographical details, and a dedicated practice of a gentle, slightly formal conversational style. Kofi's rule for his targets was simple: identify the gap. Eliza's profile revealed it instantly. A recent retirement, mentions of lost loved ones, and a subtle tone of solitude. She didn't want money yet, she wanted connection. Kofi's first messages were not about money or gifts, but about feelings. He spoke of his deep respect for the nurturing soul of a teacher, and how he longed for the uncomplicated honesty of a life lived well. He mirrored her interests, claiming a sudden passion for native Australian orchids after Eliza mentioned her small garden. The early interactions were all about intensity. Kofi managed the 5-hour time difference expertly, claiming to be working late when he was actually calling from 8 p.m. Ghana time, 3 a.m. Sydney time, which impressed Eliza with his dedication. He sent pre-written, highly romantic poems via email every morning, a practice Eliza found deeply touching, proof that romance was dead. He moved the relationship off the platform quickly, insisting on private email and encrypted WhatsApp messages, citing security concerns for his high-profile engineering work. Within 3 months, Eliza was completely convinced. William was her future. They spent hours on the phone, where Kofi, using a deep, smooth voice honed from years of practice, would simply listen, offering gentle advice and validation. He spoke of their shared future in explicit, tangible detail: buying a beachfront property on the Sunshine Coast, installing a reading nook for her, and having his children visit Aunt Eliza for Christmas. He built a golden cage of fantasy, brick by meticulous brick, locking Eliza's heart inside. By the end of the 3rd month, Eliza felt a joy she hadn't experienced since she was a young woman. Her friends noticed the glow, though they worried about the intense secrecy surrounding William, who was always seemed to be somewhere remote and too busy for a video call. Kofi claimed poor signal was due to the oil rig location. Eliza dismissed their concerns. She was in love, and this time it was forever. The stage was perfectly set for the inevitable crisis.
The relationship entered a phase of deliberate dependency. Kofi, in his role as William, made himself the center of Eliza's universe. His constant need for communication, a midday text about a boring meeting, an evening call to talk through his complex sight issues, meant Eliza was always checking her phone, always prioritizing him. This subtle erosion of her independence was a critical psychological tactic. It isolated her from her usual support networks and made his eventual rescue essential to her happiness. William spoke of money constantly, but always in the context of his own vast wealth. He'd casually mention the multi-million-dollar contracts he was closing, the need for private security due to the sums involved, and the intricate global banking system he had to navigate. He was effectively preconditioning Eliza to accept that large, complex international transfers were normal and that sometimes things went wrong. "It's frustrating, my love," he once sighed over the phone, "to have so much capital tied up in these global projects. I'm practically a millionaire on paper, but if I need $20,000 to fix a small personal emergency, it's a nightmare to access. All those complicated regulatory hoops." Eliza would listen, nodding sympathetically, filing away the details. William was preparing the ground. He had already gathered extensive personal information: where she banked, the size of her retirement portfolio, gleaned from a tearful conversation about her late husband's prudent investing, and her genuine fear of bureaucracy and government intervention. Back in Accra, Kofi was under pressure. His ringleader, a silent, imposing figure known only as the broker, demanded results. 6 months was a long time to keep a target on the line without a major payout. Kofi knew he couldn't rush the engineer's trap, the final devastating move. It had to feel organic. To build the climax, Kofi began introducing small, urgent problems. First, it was a sudden need to pay a customs fee for a laptop he wanted to send her, a symbolic gift of his commitment. The fee was 800 Aussie dollars. Eliza hesitated, but William insisted it was a small test of trust. She sent it immediately via a digital currency transfer to a crypto wallet he provided. The laptop never arrived, but William gave a tearful excuse about it being confiscated in customs due to suspicious packaging, saying he was devastated because he had personally engraved it for her. This small loss, and her acceptance of the poor excuse, was a critical win for Kofi. It established the precedent for sending money under duress and believing the improbable excuse. He had successfully built the perfect isolated reality for her, a golden cage where William was the only source of light. Next, he fabricated an illness. He sent a blurry photo of himself, not William, but a stand-in, hooked up to tubes, claiming he had contracted a severe tropical infection on a layover. He needed 2,000 Aussie dollars for emergency medication not covered by his company insurance. This was pure emotional manipulation. Eliza was distraught. She sent the funds instantly, terrified of losing him. These smaller payments served two purposes. They recouped Kofi's operating costs, internet, phones, food, and crucially, desensitized Eliza to the act of sending money abroad to save William. The final massive ask would now seem like an acceptable, albeit terrifying risk. He had successfully built the perfect isolated reality for her, a golden cage where William was the only source of light.
The email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, just as Eliza was finishing a light lunch. The subject line was stark: "Disaster. My payment is frozen. I need you." The body of the message, written in breathless, panicked prose, detailed the engineered crisis. William claimed his multi-million-dollar contract fee had been transferred to a temporary holding account in the UAE, but was now snagged by an archaic, bureaucratic regulation. The amount required to release the entire $800,000 fee and, more importantly, secure his flight home to Sydney was a mandatory, non-refundable administrative transfer fee of 25,000 AUD. "My darling, I am ruined," the message pleaded. "The company will not front this small fee for legal reasons, and my personal accounts are inaccessible until this contract money clears. If I don't pay this by Friday, the entire amount will be frozen for 6 months, and I will be stranded here, unable to see you. I am begging you, my future wife, please tell me you can help. This is for our life together. I will repay you within days. I swear on my late wife's memory." Eliza felt a sickening wave of fear and adrenaline. Her carefully constructed future, the beachfront property, the shared retirement, it was all teetering on a single expensive transaction. She tried to call William, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Then a text arrived. "Can't talk. Boarding a flight to a secure location where I can access the transfer agent. Must be email only. Hurry, time is running out." Eliza knew she didn't have $25,000. Her fixed-term deposit held exactly $15,000, money she had been saving for a major home renovation. She paced her small living room for an hour, the internal debate raging. It's a huge risk, but if I don't send it, I lose him forever. He is a millionaire. This is just a short-term liquidity problem. The emotional leverage was immense. She believed she was not sending money to a scammer, but investing in her love. She drove straight to her bank. Explaining the need to liquidate the fixed deposit felt awkward, but she deflected the teller's polite questioning by saying it was for urgent overseas medical expenses for a family friend. Within 2 hours, the money was available. The transfer itself was agonising. William had provided complicated instructions to send the funds via international wire to a specific bank in Hong Kong under the name of M. Hassan, a name he casually explained was his trusted financial liaison who handled global transfers and tax clearances. The paperwork felt wrong, but her desperation drowned out the alarms. She completed the transfer, staring at the screen, watching her savings vanish across the Pacific. She emailed William confirmation of the $15,000 transfer. The reply was instantaneous, effusive, and overwhelming. "You have saved me, my angel. I will never forget this sacrifice. Our life starts next week, I promise you." In Accra, Kofi watched the alert pop up on his secure terminal. 15,000 AUD. A huge success. Enough to keep him financially comfortable for months, and enough to settle debts to the broker. He logged off, the professional demeanour instantly replaced by cold elation. He grabbed a taxi, heading not to the slums where he lived, but to an expensive area where he bought a new, expensive suit and a top-of-the-line smartphone. The engineer was celebrating. But the taste of success was instantly marred by greed. Why stop now? He was only $10,000 short of the original ask. The lie was already established. He waited 2 days, letting Eliza bask in the relief of having saved him, before delivering the second, more ruthless blow.
The congratulatory relief was short-lived. 2 days after the $15,000 transfer, a call came through from William's private number. His voice was frantic, layered with theatrical coughs and sighs. "Eliza, it's worse. The bank here, they've hit me with an emergency tax clearance fee. They said the initial fee only covered the transfer release, but not the tax liability for moving such a large personal sum internationally. They need another $10,000 for the final documentation, or they will blacklist the account and seize the initial $15,000 as a penalty." Eliza felt physically sick. Her stomach twisted. The feeling wasn't love or fear, but a cold, hard knot of confusion. The logic was collapsing. Why hadn't the financial liaison mentioned the tax clearance before? Why was he still stranded if the initial problem was solved? "William, I don't have it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I don't have it. That was every cent of my savings. I can't get any more. I'm retired. I can't." William, sensing the resistance, shifted tactics from pleading to shaming. "You're telling me you'd let our $800,000 future be lost for a measly $10,000? You've come so far, Eliza. Don't tell me your love stops at the last hurdle. I've booked my flight for Friday. I just need this one final push, my dearest. If you love me, you'll find a way." The manipulation was so raw, so blatant. It finally broke through Eliza's emotional defences. She hung up, trembling, and sat down hard on her sofa. For the first time, she looked at William's demands not through the rose-tinted lens of love, but with the clear, professional gaze of a former teacher assessing a flawed math problem. The numbers didn't add up. The excuses were nonsensical. Eliza knew she couldn't risk the last $10,000, but she felt compelled to try one last avenue to save him. She went back to the bank, this time to speak to the branch manager, Karen, about a personal loan. Karen, a sharp woman in her late 40s, listened patiently as Eliza recounted the entire story: the engineer, the North Sea, the $800,000 contract, the Dubai holding account, the Hong Kong transfer, and now the urgent $10,000 tax clearance for an imminent Friday flight. Karen leaned back in her chair, her expression darkening with professional concern. "Eliza, I need to be honest with you. Every single detail you've shared matches an active, well-known romance scam originating out of West Africa. We see 3 or 4 of these a month. The photos are stolen, the engineer story is a script, and the financial liaison in Hong Kong is a money mule. Your William isn't coming home on Friday. He never existed." The words hit Eliza like a physical blow. Shame, humiliation, and a crushing sense of foolishness washed over her, but beneath it, a cold, hard ember of anger began to glow. "What can I do?" Eliza asked, her voice steady now, devoid of tears. "He has my $15,000. Can we get it back?" Karen sighed. "That money is gone, Eliza, but we can stop this. We need to involve the authorities immediately. The fact that he keeps pushing and has a deadline means he is fully committed to this lie. The best people for this are the Australian Federal Police."
Eliza agreed instantly. The desire to see justice served far outweighed her initial embarrassment. The AFP moved swiftly. A specialist unit, highly experienced in tracking international cyber fraud, took over. Their plan was simple: turn the table and bait the hook. Eliza was instructed to call William, Kofi, and tell him she had found the $10,000. She claimed she was selling a beloved piece of antique jewellery to an eccentric private collector. Crucially, the buyer was demanding to meet in Sydney, paying in cash, and insisted on verifying the transfer to the international account himself. Kofi took the bait. His greed overcame his caution. He couldn't risk using another money mule. He wanted that cash immediately and personally. He changed his story again, claiming he was now flying to Thailand to meet a broker who could expedite his travel, and then he would meet her personally in Sydney on Sunday, claiming the bank official could be present to finalise the documentation immediately. This was a classic high-risk move by a desperate scammer. Kofi believed the reward was worth the short flight from Thailand and the minimal risk of using a fake passport. Kofi, now travelling as Mr. Johnson on a carefully forged Liberian passport, felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. He had been planning this entire operation for months, and now, finally, he was crossing continents for the final payout. He dressed in a cheap, ill-fitting suit, a stark contrast to the tailored image of William the engineer. Every airport official was a potential threat. He clutched the burner phone, on which Eliza's last loving texts were displayed. The AFP operation at Sydney International Airport was seamless. They had his flight details, a photo of his target appearance, and a clear warrant. They waited, blending into the background of returning tourists and business travellers. At 7 a.m. on Sunday, Kofi stepped off the plane. The Australian air was cool and crisp, a shocking change from the humid heat of Accra. He was nervous, scanning the crowd, anticipating the tearful reunion with the woman he had only ever known through a screen. As Kofi approached the customs queue, an officer in a crisp uniform signalled him. "Mr. Johnson, step aside, please." Kofi's heart hammered against his ribs. He tried to feign confusion, but his mind was racing, already trying to concoct an escape.
The customs officer simply pointed to a nearby discreet holding area where two plainclothes officers from the AFP were waiting. One officer showed his badge. Kofi Mensah, you're under arrest for serious fraud offences relating to the systematic deception of an Australian citizen. Kofi stumbled back, the realisation shattering his carefully constructed reality. The cold, empty space where Eliza's love should have been suddenly filled with the brutal reality of the Australian legal system. He was led away without resistance, stripped of his fake identity and his burner phone. Kofi's romance ended not with the triumphant reunion he had planned, but with the cold, final click of handcuffs. His capture was a small, quiet victory for the Australian Federal Police, a tiny chip taken out of a vast international syndicate. As he was processed and charged, looking out the narrow window of the police vehicle, the only future he could see clearly was the long, quiet sentence that awaited him in an Australian jail. A life utterly detached from the fantasy world of the North Sea engineer.